On a quiet stretch of California coastline, locals lovingly called it a little paradise, there stood a modest yet welcoming restaurant known as the Western Retreat. It was owned by none other than Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor and director recognized worldwide for his roles as silent cowboys and steadfast defenders of justice. The restaurant's building was designed with a warm, retro flair. From the outside, one might feel as though they'd stepped onto the set of a vintage Western film: wooden walls, a slightly creaky porch, and a solid door with a brass nameplate. Inside, an inviting semi-darkness prevailed. Only the soft glow of overhead lanterns and discreet lamps created a sense of calm and safety. Black and white photographs documenting different periods of Eastwood's career hung on the walls, photos from early westerns, from award ceremonies, and from meetings with famous personalities. The tables and chairs were unpretentious yet sturdy, built to last for decades. The kitchen at the Western Retreat was led by a chef Clint Eastwood had discovered in a small town out of state, impressed by the man's signature dishes. Fresh seafood, seasonal vegetables, and light sauces formed the basis of a menu that could easily please the pickiest connoisseur. Yet, there was never a hint of snobbery here. Everyone knew the owner valued simplicity and good food more than lavish pomp. Chapter 2: Sincerity and Principles in the Staff. The restaurant staff was a tight-knit team. Everyone worked together, respected one another, and genuinely enjoyed their jobs. Among them was Mary, a young waitress who had recently been hired. She dreamed of attending university and worked as a server to help her parents and earn a bit of her own money. With her friendly demeanor and great attention to detail, she quickly became part of the group. Although Clint Eastwood had a reputation for being stern, at the restaurant he was notably composed and kind. He enjoyed personally greeting guests when he could, and sometimes he'd even help the staff move large tables or pull out chairs for elderly patrons. He inspected the kitchen regularly to ensure cleanliness, and if he spotted a nervous new hire, he'd offer a few genuine words of encouragement. He often repeated his formula for success: treat others with respect, and you'll be respected in return. It doesn't matter how much money you have if you lose your humanity. Chapter 3: An evening that was supposed to be peaceful. One night, as the sun slipped below the horizon and the evening air cooled, the restaurant filled up with a lively crowd. Locals loved the Western Retreat for its welcoming atmosphere and good cooking. In one corner sat an older couple celebrating an anniversary. At another table, a family with children who eagerly studied photos from Clint Eastwood's film career. Mary darted between tables with her notepad, taking orders in a flash. Within minutes, she knew who wanted steak, who preferred seafood pasta, and which family needed the kids' menu. Despite her growing fatigue, the positive energy from the patrons kept her spirits high. She believed that a place owned by such a legendary figure must radiate a special aura. Chapter 4: The arrival of unpleasant VIPs. Around 9 o'clock, the door swung open, letting in a gust of the cool night air. 4 individuals entered, 2 men and 2 women, all dressed in high-end designer clothes. They came in laughing, with a superior air that immediately set them apart. One man wore a flashy watch that gleamed under the lights, while his companion clutched a rhinestone-studded purse. They surveyed the restaurant as though it were beneath them, yet apparently there was no better option nearby. They were seated at a large table by the window. In seconds, the atmosphere around them seemed to dim. There was a foreboding sense that conflict was on the horizon. Their voices were loud, and their cocky attitude was palpable. When a server brought them water, they tossed out a disdainful remark about how the glasses looked too cheap. Chapter 5: Sparks of Conflict. After a few minutes, Mary approached their table, offering assistance with the menu. One of the men, a tall, dark-haired individual, shrugged indifferently and said, "Not sure you'd know which dishes are special. We've got plenty of money, so we want the best." Got it? Mary tried to keep her warm smile intact. "We have an excellent selection of seafood, and who cares about your excellent selection?" interrupted his blonde companion, wearing bright red lipstick. "Bring us all the finest items, and hurry up. We're hungry." The second man, sporting expensive sunglasses, even at night, added with a sneer, "I hope the kitchen here isn't as shabby as this interior. Or do you work in the kitchen, too, little girl?" Mary felt a tightness in her chest, hurt by the insult, but she maintained her composure. "Certainly, I'll pass your requests to the chef. Would you like to order drinks?" "The most expensive champagne," barked the other woman in the group. "And don't try to offer any cheap substitutes." Chapter 6, The Staff's Reaction in Eastwood's Position. Clint Eastwood observed the scene from afar. He could see how these guests were affecting the restaurant's mood. Though he was reluctant to intervene unless necessary, he was prepared to act if the situation deteriorated further. The chef, after receiving their order, shot Mary a puzzled look. "Who are these people?" She merely shrugged. She carefully relayed the complex requests, aware it would take extra effort to get everything right. Meanwhile, the group grew louder, boasting about losing a few thousand at the casino. "But who cares, we've got plenty more." Their flashy talk about money clashed with the cozy vibe of the establishment, leaving other patrons uneasy. Chapter 7, Harassment escalates when Mary delivered the first plates, grilled shrimp and a seasonal salad. One of the men picked up a shrimp, sniffed it disdainfully, then dropped it back on the plate. "What is this garbage? Don't you people know how to cook at a high standard? We're used to real delicacies." His female companion laughed scornfully. "Your waitress looks like a high school kid. Do you think she even knows how much this purse costs?" Another man chimed in loudly. "This purse is worth more than her yearly salary. Maybe we should give her some tips so she learns a bit about serving real VIPs." They mocked Mary as though she were subhuman, humiliating her for every minor detail. Mary felt tears welling up but tried once more to offer to replace the food. Instead, they dished out more insults. "Oh, I love how these peasants try to do everything for the rich. Do you even know what kind of wine suits us?" Again, Mary apologized, offering the wine list, but the group ridiculed every effort she made. Chapter 8, Clint steps in. Eastwood had seen enough. He realized Mary was near tears, and he couldn't tolerate such behavior in his establishment. Recognizing that such open contempt was intolerable, he decided to act. Quietly, Clint approached the table, hands in his pockets, and spoke. "Good evening. I'm the owner of this restaurant. Is everything all right?" The group fell silent for a moment. One man, who wouldn't stop flaunting his wealth, leaned back in his chair. "Oh, the owner shows up at last. Maybe you can teach your waitress how to serve customers with money?" His female friend followed with a sneer. "This place is about as high-end as your staff. She barely knows the menu." Clint remained outwardly calm, yet his tone carried an edge of steel. "We have one rule here. Everyone is treated with respect, staff and customers alike. If you dislike the food, we can replace it. But if you dislike our waitress simply because you think your money gives you the right to mistreat her, then you're in the wrong place." One man burst into laughter. "Do you think we care about your rules? We'll pay more than every other customer in this joint combined, so you should be thrilled we're here." Clint leaned in slightly. "My place, my rules. Money doesn't matter if you don't know how to act." In response, the man pulled a thick wad of bills from his wallet. "Look at this. Maybe it'll be enough for your servers to do their jobs right?" A hush fell. Nearby patrons, who had been watching, grew quiet. Mary stood off to the side, her eyes full of tears. Chapter 9, The Climax. Expelling the bullies. Clint glanced at Mary, then turned back to the smug guests, speaking in a soft yet unyielding voice. "I see you like to wave your money around. That won't work here. Take it somewhere else. You're not welcome." Still unwilling to back down, one of the men snapped. "Do you have any idea what connections I have? I could ruin your reputation if I wanted." Eastwood remained composed. "I have more influence than you might imagine. But even without it, there's something more important at stake: basic decency." Another man, removing his sunglasses, gestured at Clint. "We're not leaving until we get proper service. We're paying a lot." Clint quietly signaled to a nearby security guard. The guard, a tall, muscular individual, walked over. At this point, the foursome realized their intimidation tactics were failing. "You'll leave now," Clint repeated, "or we'll make you leave less politely." The women hissed in indignation. One man slammed his fist on the table. "You'll regret this." But the words fell on deaf ears. The guard firmly but politely motioned them toward the door. Realizing their position was hopeless, the group snatched up their belongings and stomped away, shooting venomous glares at the staff. As they left, the restaurant breathed a collective sigh of relief. Chapter 10, Restoring Calm. Mary was visibly upset, apologizing to Clint. "Mr. Eastwood, I'm so sorry this happened. Maybe I couldn't handle them properly." Clint gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did fine. You don't have to put up with insults. It's my responsibility to stand up for my team." Some patrons, who had witnessed the incident, started clapping. A few approached Mary with supportive words. One older lady said, "Don't worry, dear. Rich people aren't always rich in heart." Another joked, "In his movies, Clint fought the bad guys, and tonight he kicked out a bunch of jerks. Who needs TV when real life is more exciting?" Through her lingering tears, Mary managed a grateful smile at the show of solidarity. Chapter 11, Aftermath and word spreads. News of the event quickly circulated around town. After all, it wasn't every day that Clint Eastwood himself removed guests from his restaurant. Some speculated it might harm the establishment's reputation. But the opposite occurred. People admired the Western Retreat even more, praising its stance that money doesn't excuse abusive behavior and that Eastwood himself upheld those values. Social media posts about how the legendary cowboy defended his staff went viral. Some commented, "He's still a hero, even off-screen," while others praised him for staying true to his ideals. A few worried customers might see this as overly strict, but in reality, diners flocked in larger numbers, drawn by the restaurant's reputation for fairness and respect. Mary, though shaken by the encounter, felt she was in the right place. The owner, the team, and even many of the regular patrons stood together. Sometimes difficult customers showed up, but everyone understood the main rule at the Western Retreat: respect is never optional. Chapter 12, A New Day. Ongoing challenges. Early the next morning, the Western Retreat opened its doors at 10 a.m. Mary arrived early to tidy the dining area and leave the previous day's negativity behind. She was touched to see several locals, who had also witnessed the conflict, drop by for coffee and offer supportive remarks. Clint, as was his routine, reviewed the day's reservations, inspected the refrigerators for fresh supplies, and briefly chatted with Mary to reassure her, "I know last night was tough. But you're part of this team now. Nobody here is going to tolerate being mistreated, you or anyone else." Mary nodded, appreciation shining in her eyes. Chapter 13, An unexpected thank you. Around lunchtime, a couple who had been present during the incident returned. They requested Mary specifically, "We saw how hard it was for you to deal with those rude people yesterday. You handled it with dignity. Please accept this small token of gratitude." They handed her an envelope. Mary hesitated, not wanting extra money, but they insisted, "It's not a tip, it's our way of saying thank you. We want you to know the town appreciates your effort." Flustered yet grateful, Mary ultimately accepted, feeling deeply moved by their kindness. Chapter 14, Building a Future on Principles. Days passed, and the restaurant continued to flourish. The incident with the obnoxious guests had become a lesson for anyone who thought money could justify insulting behavior. A few reporters tried to get interviews with Eastwood, but he refused to sensationalize what happened. He simply reiterated that in the Western Retreat, every staff member is valued above any paying customer's sense of entitlement. Locals, upon hearing about the story, showed even greater support for the restaurant. It was more than just a place to enjoy a meal, it represented a community that upheld principles and humanity. Tourists, learning of its stance, praised the unique character of a restaurant where respect was more important than wealth. Chapter 15, Looking to the sky. That evening, after the last guests departed, Clint stepped out onto the veranda, which faintly resembled an old Western film set. He glanced up at the starry California sky, reflecting on how quickly people forget their common decency when they're blinded by money. He thought back to his own classic films, where characters battled for justice, realizing that the fight is no less necessary in today's world. Money often leads us astray, he mused. But honor and respect, those have to be earned. Epilogue, a lesson worth more than money. And so ended this story of how Clint Eastwood, the iconic actor and director, remained true to his core values by expelling guests who tried to demean a waitress through their wealth and insults. He proved that even in real life, not just on screen, he's still that unyielding cowboy who stands up for what's right. After the incident, the Western Retreat became even more popular. People came not just for the excellent food but for the chance to experience a place where human dignity is treasured above all else. Ultimately, as Clint might say, respect can't be bought, even if your wallet's bursting at the seams. And if you've forgotten that, you'd better stop and remember what really matters in the people around you.